Somebody gave me the house number. Let me try it again. Okay, good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 regular board meeting for Tuolumne Utilities District. Let's see, General Manager Perkins, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, public forum. We'd like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This section is for comments on items not listed on the agenda. Persons speaking during public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. While no action or discussion may be undertaken by the board on topics presented in this section, board members are listening carefully to these comments and appreciate your input. Is there any members of the public who'd like to address the board? Okay, seeing none. Move on to consent calendar, Melissa.
Okay, item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of June 25th, 2024. Item number 2, approval of reimbursement claims for director's statement of meetings attended and or travel expenses and claim summary for June 2024. Item number 3, resolution to approve appropriations limit for the fiscal year 2025. Item number 4, consider approving a leak adjustment request in excess of $1,000.
Are there any directors who'd like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar? Director Ringen.
I reluctantly raised my hand because I know we all need to get into our guest's presentation, but have to do it, sorry. So 2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4. Okay.
That covers what I was.
You too, Director Boatright. Okay. Okay, then we'll start with you, Director Ringen. Go ahead.
Okay, on number 2, don't have to really get into this, but this is for our great finance director. I read this thing twice, and admittedly, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. What is this about? Appropriations. Oh, I'm sorry, not 2. I was going all the way to the end, or to number 3. But let's start with number 3. What is the what's this all about? Just real brief, just.
Yes, absolutely. So this before you today is a yearly process that we go through where we have to adopt a resolution improving the appropriation limits for fiscal year 2025. And what appropriation limits are is sometimes they're called by a different name called the GAN limit. And this basically dates back to 1979 when voters approved what was called the GAN initiative that basically stated that they wanted to limit government's ability to spend tax revenue. So they basically said, here's what our tax revenue is for in 1979. We don't want government to spend above this level, but it can be adjusted with certain factors every year. And so the factors are basically cost of living as well as population growth. So each year, any entity that receives tax revenue, which we do, which we receive a small portion of property tax from the county, we cannot spend more than what all of those calculations have accumulated to over those years since 1979. So that's essentially what this is. It's stating what that tax revenue limit is. We're saying we won't spend more than that, which we won't. We don't even get close to receiving that amount. But basically, it's a formality that we have to go through each year. So I hope that explains.
Yeah,
So
well,
basically with those factors, all those factors since 1979, our limit for this year would be 4.6 million. We don't even come close to getting that much in property tax. We're only about 1.4 is what we have budgeted.
thank you very much for that. That was very confusing. I didn't understand. what that was all about, so thank you for that.
No problem.
I have a question on that. Has the policy changed year over year from
Has the
last year to
policy
this?
No,
year?
it's
Any change?
identical.
All right, thank you.
Is that it
Okay.
for that item? Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Director.
then we'll go to number 2, which was the claim summary, my favorite, not. Okay, 1 of 19, Augustine Planning Associates, annual ditch training. What in the world is that?
That's for the HPMP on the ditch, and it's an annual training that we have to do.
What is HM? or
The
what is-
Historic Properties Management Program.
Oh, okay.
So we have to do this every year just to train ditch staff, but then we also bring construction maintenance in. So when we have projects on the ditch, they know what they're looking for in case they run across something.
Why did we hire them when we have Rick Lynn, EN2 Enterprises? They just got through doing this huge evaluation of the ditch. We already paid for it, and I'm sure it wouldn't have cost a whole bunch, hardly anything, to have him give that information that you're looking for ditch maintenance. I mean, he just got through doing that.
Director Vingan, I'm not sure. We can inquire with the EN2 for future. We've been using Augustine planning for many years, as far as I can remember, for this planning every year. But if you want us to reach out to Rick Lynn to see if he can provide the same sort of training, we can do so.
Well, I think it's after the fact now. I mean, it's too
Well,
late.
we're gonna do it again next year.
Next year. Well, it might be.
It's yearly, it's a yearly required training, so
Okay, it might be well worth checking into
we'll look
because
into it.
he might have done it for a sliver of that.
Okay.
You know, because he was just there. He covered the whole ditch system. Okay, second thing, 6 of 19. Condor, one of our favorite local folks. Soil testing. These are all, it looks like majority was for pipe jobs. Why do we need soil testing to install pipes?
Yeah, Director Ing, in this particular case, their compaction testing as required for the encroachment permit conditions with the county whenever we're doing pipeline work in public roadways. The county has a 95% compaction requirement under the pavement for the subgrade. So these are to maintain compliance with that, and it's just good standard practice for all pipeline work inside roadways.
And we don't have anybody on staff that's able to do that?
It's funny you should ask that. We have looked into getting someone certified to use a nuclear test gauge. And Condor is the local provider. They've been the most cost effective to date, but I think as we get higher and more volume of work, we may want to look at that. Unfortunately, we're always going to be at the mercy of a testing lab. We're going to have to take the sample and send it to a lab anyway. So there's only so much streamlining we can do, and Condor has been the most cost effective to date.
Okay, well, I get that. It's just that, my God, with the amount of pipe we're putting in the ground the last couple of years, it just seems to me that, I don't know. Anyway, be that as it may. 10 and 19, HDR Engineering Incorporated. HDR, I don't know, but FERC, that every time FERC comes up, I kind of get the quivers. What is that for?
$1,600.
It should be for Columbia Hydro.
Columbia Hydro.
Yep.
So that's part of us extricating ourselves from that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Then the final one is 10 and 19, Lake Doctor. I know all about Lake Doctor, so I know why he's out there and doing it, but that's $6,500 a month for algae control, which I'm sure is an issue at Phoenix Lake, especially now that we've had we didn't finish the project, which really irritates me considerably. But then we had all the damage from the heavy storm that we had last year. Or storms, I should say. What's the situation out there? When are we gonna get Phoenix Lake finished? When are we gonna get the damage taken care of? When's that gonna get behind us?
We can't speak to future work. It's not on the agenda. If you want to talk about the lake dam during their bill, long before TUD did some historic work out there and more setting than anybody else ever has in the history of the lake. Phoenix always has issues with algae and has historically had periods of taste and odor issues out of the Sonora water treatment plant due to the algae in Phoenix Lake. Until last summer, TUD have never used an outfit like the Lake Doctor to try and manage the amount of algae that grows out there, which leads to taste and odors. In the last couple of years, I'm drinking Sonora water. I drink it every day when I'm here at work. And these last 2 years have been the best this water's ever tasted out of Phoenix Lake due to that algae control. So it's well worth the $6,500.
Okay, I'm just, whether it's on the agenda or not, we need to look into what's going on out there at Phoenix Lake and get that finished. So
Well,
I'll leave that as it is.
what this board does know is that we have grants out there looking for $20-some thousand worth of money to complete the project.
That's it for me on that.
Yeah, I just want to caution us, thank you, because there's probably people in the Phoenix area that would like to comment on this. So I would ask that we either agendize this item as a review, a formal review for the board. Where are we with Phoenix Lake? So we don't go, as you say, off the agenda. So,
Well, that's fine. That's fine with me.
Okay.
You know me, I'm ready to talk about that anytime.
so I'm
Let's make it
requesting
agenda.
that we make that an agenda, an update on Phoenix, where we are with Phoenix.
Okay, let's do that, Don.
That's it for me.
That's it for you. Any other director questions or pulling anything on the CC on the consent
Well,
calendar?
I still have one more.
Oh, do you? I'm sorry.
No,
Thought you
no,
said you were
but
done.
I didn't want to cut off anybody if
Okay.
they had something to do on the claim summary. So are we done with that?
Yep, you go
Okay.
right ahead.
We also pulled, item number 4.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So with that, okay, we're looking at possible approving a leak adjustment. Looks like Chucky went rogue again. The only thing I want to do is just point out how important it is for us to address this situation as soon as possible, because this is a big hit for the water department. And I feel sorry for the folks that it happened to, and I understand, I read through the thing, but this needs to end. And if that was a electronic read, I think we would have found that leak way sooner and been able to get those folks notified and onto the repair to stop that loss of water and loss of money. So
Yeah, and just to clarify, this was an electronic read meter, but the leak happened right after we read meters. And so that's essentially what
2
happened.
months, we need to go to 1.
Yeah. But just to
That's
clarify,
what
it
I'm
was-
getting at.
Right, gotcha.
Director Jacobs?
Thank you. I have just a follow-up question on the chart that shows the water usage based on the data logger information. From what I can tell, the leak started on the 17th of March. Is that accurate? So the data logger, how was it that the data was logged, but somehow it wasn't communicated until there was a visual observation?
So even our radio read meters are not something that we can read daily.
Okay,
It's just what makes them radio read is that we drive by
right.
the meter and then the reading goes into the computer in the truck.
Mhm.
But it's not something we can read from the office.
Okay,
So in order to get this type of read to see when we do this when we know that there's a leak,
Mhm.
because either A, this is one that the customer caught. Then we go out with what's called a data logger, which is still a little bit of a manual process where you can download the reads into this logger.
okay,
But you have to be there at the meter to
Got it.
download it.
okay. So the
Does that help?
information's resident at the meter, but you have to physically go there and
Mhm.
download the information.
Correct.
And once we downloaded that, we discovered the history. So they
Yes.
noticed a leak on the 9th or the 10th of April,
Yes,
but the leak actually started based on the data logger, the 17th of March.
yes, from what we can tell, yes.
So do we have any technology in the works that would help facilitate getting earlier detection?
Not with, even this is a radio read meet, and this with those types of meters, that really is the earliest. Even in this situation, if we did monthly, we still wouldn't have caught it until basically we might have caught it a couple days sooner.
Right.
But yeah. Not with even our current radio read meets. There are some meters out there, which I don't know if TUD has ever looked into, but that you can do downloads from an office setting.
Uh-huh.
But it's from places I've been previously, topography tends to be an issue
Right.
with those types of meters, that our topography is not overly friendly towards those.
Mhm.
They will work great in valley type towns. But yeah, so currently, no, this is the most updated technology that we have.
Okay. But is there, does staff know of any other technologies out there that we might be looking, ahead to
Yeah, we're
help
always
facilitate?
looking,
Uh-huh.
and we're talking with Calaveras a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Cause they have a little bit different style than what we do. So we're looking and trying to find a better way that's cost effective, because to change everything again would be millions.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Director Boatright.
I've got some questions. So Director Ringen, that this is established that this is a electronic read meter, and the shortfalls of them not, directly feeding in all the time. But my questions are more towards, where is Willow Springs fed from as far as the water treatment plant in the area? Is that Monte Grande or is that higher up the hill?
It's mostly fed from Monte Grande. It can be fed from the upper basin system, which Monte Grande is part of the Lakewood side of system as well. But the majority of it comes from Monte Grande. That's
Okay, so when the Willow Springs water treatment plant went offline, did we lose, distribution system metering from that area? Is that what has occurred? To me, it seems like if a water operator in March, basically a non-heat month, noticed that, distribution meter jumped up, 50 GPM, what calculates out to be 40 to 50 GPM or, whatnot, unless. So where I'm kind of driving at is, would it not be, practical to make sure that our distribution system meters, feed into our telemetry or back to the office, moving forward so that we can catch some of this, regardless of whether we're 1 month or 2 month meter read, seeing a spike in the winter time.
So the water treatment operators at most of the treatment plants, if not all of them, well, no, period, all of them, they have a production meter and a distribution meter, and they record and analyze that every day. That's, that is how they make adjustments to the plant's operations based on the demand. So yes, technically they could see, maybe as much as a 50 gallon per minute demand increase, but it's highly likely that would trigger them. A 50 gallon a minute adjustment one way or another isn't going to trigger an operator to make oh my gosh, I got an alarm. I got a problem. I'll go back to whatever year it was. We had a big windstorm. A lot of trees went down in Cedar Ridge. And the Cedar Ridge had a very limited amount of the capacity to make water. And this was in the dead of winter. And the demand then, the distribution operator did catch, hey, the demand here should be about 50 gallons a minute. I'm up over 400 gallons a minute. I'm going to be empty. We sent the meter technician out there at the time with auto read meters. Thankfully, we had them up there and found that leak in short order and made the repair. So all that to say, 50 gallons a minute, I don't know that an operator would catch as far as being something that would alarm them.
Yeah, it would definitely be worthwhile to consider, as we go forward with consolidation, with larger water treatment plants that our smaller system areas have, redundant distribution meters that can be monitored to, help catch some of this stuff. That's all I have, for that item.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right then. Any comment from the public regarding the consent calendar? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I'll move that we accept the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Melissa.
Okay, regular business, item number 5, presentation on the collaborative delivery process for Sierra Pines Regional Water Treatment Facility by Marsh Wagner.
Okay. Gadiel.
Hey, my name is Gadiel Gimate. I'm an associate engineer here with the district, and I'm really excited to be here again, presenting on this item, the Sierra Pines Water Treatment Plant. Big things are happening. I'm excited to be a part of it. So I wanted to say 2 things to your board before introducing Marsh Wagner, our consultant. One is, the purpose of this presentation was, we're going to progressive design build construction method for this plant. It's new to us, it's new to you guys, and we really want you guys to feel comfortable as we progress towards, hiring a contractor through the design process, giving the notice to proceed to construction. So that's why we asked Marsh Wagner to give this presentation, to try to give you guys this roadmap, explain more to you about it. I hate surprises in any construction project. I always say that to the contractors and the owners and the property owners that I deal with. We like everyone to be aware of where we're going. That way we can do it together as a team. So that's why we asked Marsh Wagner to put on this presentation. I've done presentations before, but they're the expert in their field, and we want you to hear it directly from them, where we're going from here. Okay, the second thing I'd like to say is, or I'd like to give a suggestion, if you will. I find that when I have a question during a presentation, a lot of the times it's answered if I just write down my question and then allow the presentation to continue. We went through it this morning, 20-25 minutes with no interruptions or anything like that. And so if you have a burning question that, you need answered, you're really confused about something and it's going to inhibit your, understanding from then on, go ahead and speak up. I don't want to limit that, but we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. I actually have handouts of some of the slides to hand to you at the end so we can discuss it more because, some of this is complicated. We're trying to boil it down as simple as possible because I'm a simple person and that's the only thing I can handle. But we also don't want to ignore the more fine points so that you guys can learn about it either. So that's my suggestion to, unless you are really confused about something, hold questions to the end. But then again, you guys are elected officials and you can do what you want. So with no further ado, I'll introduce Fred. We've been working with him for a number of weeks now. This is Fred Wagner of Marsh Wagner, and he's just going to take it from here.
Thank you, Gadiel. Appreciate it very much. Director Kern, members of the board, thank you very much for giving the opportunity to speak for you. As Gadiel said, we like to think of ourselves as experts at collaborative delivery. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily an expert at doing this presentation, so bear with me. We've got a slide deck here for you. I'm going to switch over to Zoom. And as Gadiel said, if there's something that I say or something you see that it is of concern to you, please stop me and we'll we'll back up or do whatever we need to do. There's plenty of room for time at the questions. There's one very complex diagram in here, and I've got it at the back of the deck too, so we're gonna kind of go through it, but if you have a lot of questions on that, we'll circle back at the end. We can spend as much time at the end as you want on that particular slide. You'll know it when you see it. Let's see. Show.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought, right.
There it is. And share screen. Corey, is our share screen restricted? Oh, there it is. The green button. Okay. Let's just share this. Here. And now we can go to from the beginning, Fred?
Yes.
Nobody's watching you.
No, we got no signal detected here, Corey.
No, that's.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
You're
Go ahead, yeah. Let's go. Okay.
There we go. Nobody panic. All right.
Unfortunately, you guys did not hire us for IT services. So let's get started. There we go. Okay, so I had to find the right button. So quickly, what we want to cover during our presentation today, we obviously want to talk about our role as your advisor. We want to talk about the project driver, what drives all of our decision making, a little bit about the progressive design build process, kind of give you an introduction to that and kind of explain some of the differences and advantages over a conventional design bid build. We want to talk a little bit about collaboration because that's very important to this transaction, and also build the budget. Build the budget is something that we need to do because of our project driver, and there's a lot of moving parts to that. And we want to finish off with what we're looking for in terms of selecting the right design builder, which is the most important thing we're concerned with right now. Probably the thing that's going to have the biggest impact on the project outcome. This is our org chart. I'm here as the lead advisor. Also with us today is Heather Marsh, our president. And Chris Meyer. Chris Meyer is a constructability and cost expert. I've known him for most of my professional career, over 30 years. Probably one of the smartest construction guys I know. I think he's forgotten more about construction than I'll ever know. But really good resources. He and I have known each other for a really, really long time. That actually worked for his dad, who was a superintendent for Whiting Turner many years ago before I even met Chris. The role of the owner advisor, it breaks down into a couple of different phases. Right now, we're in the procurement phase. So the procurement phase, we're developing the contract, the scope of work, the request for proposals, and deciding on what the selection criteria is for our design builder that's going to enable us to select the most qualified design build team. Design build teams are typically a contractor and a design builder is the most common form. They can be joint ventures. They can be a prime and a sub. We like to see contractor-led teams in design build with the designer as a sub. There are some integrated firms, design builders, that provide both services. But the important thing to know with the design build team is the contractor is on the team from day one. He's there all the way to the end, as is the designer. And we like to see design build teams that have worked together in the past. So the most important thing we're going to do during procurement with all the contracts, all the documents we're developing, all the outreach we're doing is we want to attract highly qualified teams, and we want to make sure that we facilitate selection of the right one. And we're here to guide you guys through this process. Following the procurement stage, the preliminary stage, as we call it, is really the design stage, and it's also the pre-construction stage. So we're developing the design at the same time. We're planning for the construction stage. Our contractor's on board. He's developing cost deliverables, risk deliverables, and schedule deliverables to help support this design to budget process that we're going to undertake. What we want to do as the owner advisor during that stage of the contract is we want to promote collaboration and transparency. That's the key to this whole process. Is we have to be very collaborative. It's a highly complex process, a lot of transactions and a lot of moving parts to this. The key to it is it's all got to be transparent. Everything is open book. We want to make sure you're getting the transparency you need, so you have the information you need as the owner to make good decisions. And we want to enforce best practices throughout. There are best practices in terms of how we develop the design, how we develop the cost estimate, how we manage risk, and how we develop the schedule. So we're here to serve as a support person of that, to make sure that you're getting the best possible services and the maximum value of all those deliverables. We're also here to provide expert advice and opinions when you need it. Most importantly, we want to help define expectations early. We want this to be a friendly transaction throughout. The way to make it not become adversarial down the road is we have to set expectations and make sure everybody's on the same page before we even start. So we're here to help with that. We do that with workshops and other things. And we're here to validate the deliverables. So the design documents, the schedules, the cost estimates that are presented to you, we're here to validate to you to help you determine that that's a fair and equitable. It's a good schedule, it's a quality schedule, it's accurate, it's fair, and it's equitable. And we do that throughout the process. That's typically what POA does. Also, our ultimate goal here is we want to facilitate rapid, informed decision-making by you, the owner. That's the key to this whole process. If you have the information you need, you can make really good decisions. We keep this thing on track. This was a slide I think Geddy presented to you in a previous presentation. You filled one slot in the puzzle with us, and now we're in the process of selecting our design builder. I think our project driver is obvious to everybody. It's our budget. We absolutely have to deliver this thing within the funding limit from DDW right now. That's $45.6 million. So that really drives all of our decision making, and it makes it very critical that we adopt a very effective build to budget process. If we don't have that process in place from day one, we will not be able to control the cost and keep ourselves under that budget. Traditional design build, which most of you all are, I'm sure, are familiar with. The owner works with the designer. You develop a set of design documents. You put it out to bid, and you get the lowest prices, so you select. So you get price certainty at the very end of this transaction. We don't know what the price is going to be until we put it out on the street. You get opinions, but the contractor's not involved in that. That's the big advantage with progressive design build. In progressive design build, we don't rely on the market to set a low price for the work. And keep in mind, the lowest price is not always the best price for the work. And that's a secondary thing we want to think about. We don't want to pay too much, but there's some value in paying a little more for things sometimes. And we look for that cost benefit in evaluating this. But we rely heavily on transparency and collaboration. We all work together as a team. And the most important thing to remember is the contractor's on board on day one. So we're getting his input and his feedback in terms of constructability and cost, and all that feedback helps us make good decisions. Ultimately, we're going to negotiate a fair and equitable guaranteed maximum price for the work. That's the most contractually, that's the most you're going to pay for the work. These are open book transactions, and ultimately you're going to pay based on actual cost incurred. So that's the most you're going to pay. Anything they don't spend, most of that, usually typically all of it, or sometimes you're sharing savings, but most of that is going to revert back to TUD at the end. The other thing to remember in terms of a guaranteed maximum price versus a lump sum bid that you get on a design bid build is we're baking in reasonable risk contingencies for anticipated risks. So things that can happen during construction, we assess those risks, and we're allowing contingencies in that guaranteed maximum price to cover the cost of those risks. So you're not seeing cost growth that you would normally see on a traditional design build project, where you put it out to bid, and if you change something, you got to come up with more money. So we're baking some of that cost in, and again, if that's all under our budget, we're able to build this thing all the way through and finish with the expected cost that's established much earlier. We achieve cost certainly primarily by managing risk, and risk in this world is uncertainty. Right now, we haven't started design yet. There's a lot of things. There are a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things we haven't investigated. So we have a lot of uncertainty. So if we're putting a price on this project right now, there's a very high risk cost component to it, and a very low component of well-defined costs. And the whole progressive design build process is a process of eliminating uncertainty. As we eliminate uncertainty, certainty increases, the price comes down, risks go away, and we hopefully arrive at a lower GMP than where we started. So that's what this transaction is all about. This is another slide that Gadiel gave you before, just looking at the concerns that you have about this process. You know, being new to TUD, you need some help. You checked that box already. We have our contractor on board, so we're sort of, this is a marriage, and it's very difficult to extract ourselves. So we have to be very conscious of that. But again, if we set expectations early, and we have a good team, and there's good communication, there's a high probability we can all be successful and finish this thing, and everybody's happy. We want them to make money, but we also want to make sure this thing's under our budget. And this is a very involved process. It relies on a high level of engagement. You don't just sit back and let all this stuff happen. You have to manage this stuff from day one, and that's very important. So we've started both of these things. There is a steep learning curve. We're actually been here in Twain Harte for 3 or 4 weeks now, and we're here for another 3 or 4 weeks. This was the decision we made post-selection, is to come up here and get FaceTime with you guys. So we're getting a lot of day-to-day contact. The engagement we're getting from people has been tremendous. It's been the best I've ever experienced. These guys are very intelligent, very excited about this process and maximizing. So I commend you guys on that. But we're making some progress. The important thing to remember about progressive design build is the owner always controls the scope. You guys get to decide what the scope is. The design builder establishes the price. If you don't like the price, we got to change the scope. So that's how this works. And that's what we do progressively throughout this process. But you always have the ability to adjust the scope to get this job back under budget. Build to budget, again, is what we need to use to drive.
Excuse me,
this whole
Fred?
process. Yes, sir.
Director Balin has a question.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wanted to go back to managing risk for a
Yes.
moment, okay, as you front load this process. Oh, thank you. Okay, I wanted to go back to managing risk for a minute. Sorry, Gadiel, I couldn't wait. Have
You're
you,
fine.
I would recommend speaking to the infrastructure, I'm talking about post-fire recovery costs. To look
Yes.
at those, and perhaps this will come up in your slides future, but anyway, I'm saying it now. And contact the people that had to turn raw water into their treated waters to fight the Marshall Fire in Colorado.
Yes.
And look at, because a lot of times in your post-fire recovery, you can't get these places back online because you didn't fire harden your pumps, which we're gonna have up there, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, it would be very prudent to contact Paradise, the water managers up there, because why people can't move back? Because the infrastructure couldn't be rebuilt.
Yes.
Okay, so you've already thought of this, I'm sure, but I'm just letting you know to talk about, and
Dr. Allen, is a fantastic question. It's a great question.
yeah,
And
so it's the
Yes.
post-disaster recovery costs, so we can get our system back online in a fire-prone area.
one of the important aspects is, and I'm glad you asked this question, because it's not really in the slide deck, but risk, again, this is all about risk management. Everything is risk. And we just, as we eliminate risk, we get our price down. We're very strong advocates of, we start off by assessing risk on day one. There's a document, I don't have a lot of detail on it, we can talk about it, but there's a document called a risk register, which is a formal document that we create that identifies all the potential risks. We assess those risks, we develop mitigation strategies, and we assess cost, and we allocate that risk to the parties within the contract. And we want to do that on day one. Ultimately, we're going to have the contractor manage that risk for us, but we had a workshop last Friday. We're developing the risk register now, 4 months before we even select the design builder. To get on top of that, we've been very conscious of fire risk here. You have a meeting set up with El Dorado. So we have a meeting in a couple of weeks to go talk to them about their recovery efforts. There's a couple of things. There's a huge community impact. We have to also think about water quality in terms of the watershed. You have a fire up there, you get ash goes into the reservoir, and we have to be able to treat that. So we've reached out to a couple of communities that have gone through this exact process. One of them did not have any problems with treatment post-fire, the other did. So now we're going to go see them. So yes, we've got 50 items on our risk register, all the way down to pond turtles up in the pond there. We have to make sure we take care of them. So
Yeah.
that it's a huge important part of this process. And it's risky, scary. Everybody gets afraid of risk, but this is really about managing the risk. And
Yeah, well, I'm talking to real people, not having it
Yes.
a thought exercise.
yes, no, your
yeah.
operators are talking to their operators, and that, yes, this is very,
Add
Yes.
Paradise and Marshall Fire in Colorado to your list.
yes,
Okay.
there's no reason we can't go to Colorado either, but yes, that's a huge concern.
Okay,
We don't want to spend a bunch of money building improvements in the plant designed to handle the TSS loads that are going to come from the ash, because you're going to use it once and then not need it for another 40 years. So
Mhm.
we're being very thoughtful of that, because we want to take that out of the scope if we can come up with an alternate method that will take care of it. Because I'm getting too weedy, aren't I?
thank you. Thank you.
Yes, no, it's an excellent question. So our ultimate goal here is to build the budget. You really break that down into 4 key components. A, we want to select the right design builder. We're going to talk about what that is in a few minutes. We need to design at the budget first. If we can't design at the budget, we can't build at the budget. We're going to negotiate a fair and equitable GMP again with some risk contingencies built in to cover some anticipated things, some things that are probably going to cost. We factor probability into there. And then ultimately, we got to build at the budget, and we can build at the budget if we have those reasonable risk contingencies, so we can quickly adapt and authorize more expenditures when things happen that we anticipate within a certain limit. So it's all designed to make this thing go smooth. It's important to talk about what cost certainty actually is here. When you do a conventional design bid build, you get your lump sum bid, and you get cost certainty, but it's not truly certain, because if you make changes later, you still got to pay them some more money. In our world here, in our little progressive design build environment here, we like to define cost certainty as a price that you guys are willing to pay for the work. And it's at the same time, it has to be a price that the design builder is willing to accept as the guaranteed maximum price of the project. So we can establish a we can get cost certainty at 30% design. It may be a higher price than ultimately we would pay at 100% design, but we have certainty, but we have to recognize that there are more risks early in design because we haven't fully developed the scope. So our risk costs are going to be higher and that price is going to be higher. But if we can establish a 30% target price at 30% design, and it's under our budget, there's a very high probability we can get to a GMP and define the scope and reduce risk. We can get to a lower GMP. So we're going to have cost certainty very, very early in this process, provided we manage costs going forward from that point. We can't just start adding scope and doing all this other crazy stuff. The price is going to blow up. And at the same time, the equity part of this is it has to be a price they're willing to accept. We can't just say this is all we have and you have to do it for that. They have to make a profit. So it's a balance here, and it's a continuous negotiation. Now, this is the complicated graphic, and I just wanted to focus on a couple of elements of this. We can come back to this later if you guys have some detailed questions, but this sort of illustrates the difference between design build and progressive design build in terms of opportunity. Our contractor is on board on day one on a progressive design build. So if you look at that top bar, we're going to have a price, a preliminary schedule, and a risk assessment at 30% design. So we're going to have some level of price certainty of what it's going to cost based on what we know at that time. On a conventional design build, you're going to do your 30% design, then you're going to do your 60, your 90, your 100, and you're going to put it out to bid. And then you're going to open your Christmas present and find out what's in it. Progressive design build is all about knowing what's in our Christmas present. And then we wrap it up and we open it up on GMP day, and that's what we thought. That's what we want. But we're going to establish some level of price certainty at 30%. If we don't like that price, we have an opportunity, because we have all this contractor input, to change the scope and bring it back down to where we need it to be, and incorporate those changes in the design as it advances to 60%. The second thing we're trying to do early in design is we want to get some of this long lead procurement items, the big equipment and the thing that takes a year to get. We have an opportunity to get some of that stuff ordered early, so we can issue an early GMP, buy some of that stuff, and that allows us to ultimately compress the schedule on the back end. So there's a lot of really important things happening early in design that don't happen on a traditional design build procurement. And that's what we want to reap the advantages of. But again, it's collaborative. We have to trust each other. At the end, we have to negotiate. We don't get to just open a bid and that's the number. So it is challenging. And again, we have to stay highly engaged. We can't just sit back and let the process doesn't happen all by itself. Everybody on this team at this table here with TUD is going to be involved in every bit of this thing. But at the end, I think it's worth it. We're here because we believe in the process. But you can see if we wait till the end, if we get price certainty on a design bid build all the way at the end, it's too late to do anything. Now you got to go back to your designer. You got to pay him to redesign it. It's just a mess. So we're trying to avoid all that. So how do we foster collaboration as a team, both us and you? First of all, we put it in the contract to make sure that there are certain steps we want them to take to make sure we're all communicating. We want to make sure we have common objectives and expectations, and we want to have consistent processes for how we develop our cost estimates, how we develop our schedule, and how we develop our risk ratio. And these are all best practices. These are things, there are industry ways to do it. There are really good and smart ways to do it, and you can also mail it in. And we're here to make sure they don't mail it in, because we got to extract the maximum value out of those deliverables. We want to have regular workshops, regular face-to-face meetings, get the whole team in the room, get everybody in the room. You tend to make pretty good decisions because you get the benefit of everybody's experience. So we want to make sure we have a lot of workshops. We have in our current scope, we probably have 20 workshops. to get together at key points to make good decisions and allow TUD steer the project. The benefits we hope to reap from this collaboration is we want to transfer ownership of the project budget to the design builder as soon as we issue NTP. So he owns the budget. He's responsible designing to the budget. By having the designer and builder as the same team, we can transfer all that responsibility to them. We're not stuck between a designer and a builder trying to manage both. So it's his responsibility to provide a project that meets the scope requirements that we can build for our budget. And we transfer all that to him, which is good. We want to make sure we streamline the review processes for risk, cost, and schedule. If we stop our design and we're looking at all these cost estimates for 2 months, we're losing time. So we want this to go really fast. We want it to be very transparent and quickly understand why the costs change so we can make decisions that we need to make to bring it back under budget. We want to establish our target price at 30%. Hopefully that's a price we're happy with and they're happy with. If it is, it's full steam ahead. If it's not, we adjust. We try to get there at 60. We want to define our early procurement objectives at 30% design because then we can advance the design on those parts and pieces. So when we get to 60, we can release some things, get some things ordered. And again, we can knock some general conditions out of the job and knock some time off the project. And ultimately, we want to be able to achieve a rapid cost reconciliation and budget recovery at every stage of design. Quickly adjust, pivot, bring ourselves back in, keep moving. Design to budget, just a couple of design to budget best practices. These things that were in our original presentation to your team. We want to try and mitigate risk early in design. You can't wait. If we can mitigate things early, we can eliminate scope and uncertainty. We can start driving that price down quickly. We want to establish that target price as early as we can and then manage to that design to that budget. We want to be able to quickly identify changes in direct costs as the design is advanced. If you guys always know why the cost changed, you can always make a quick decision to fix it. And we're going to carry risk contingencies. And again, they're going to be larger contingencies at the beginning. We're going to carry contingencies. So anytime we do have cost growth, and there will be things that do change, we need to have extra cost. We're going to either pull money out of our risk contingencies to offset those increases in costs, or we're going to come up with scope offsets. We're going to find something else we can live without, or we're going to do value engineering, which is trying to find less costly alternatives that don't really change the scope. And a good example of that is we're looking right now, the preference is for pre-stressed concrete tanks for this particular project. We're finding out that they're way more expensive than the traditional bolted steel tanks. So we do a cost benefit analysis there, but an option if our price is too high is we can just go to bolted steel tanks. We still get our clear wells, but we knock some money out of the job. So there'll be a lot of value engineering throughout. And again, we have a contractor on board. He's going to help us with those ideas and he's going to tell us what they cost. This is an example of an actual project that Marsh Wagner was involved in back earlier this year. And I think it illustrates kind of how this transaction is going to work. The green bar on this graph are the direct costs of the work. Those are certain costs, things we know, how many yards of concrete are on the job, how many feet of pipe that we can price. The blue bar are the risk costs. Those are the costs that are for uncertainties, the things we haven't defined. They're contingencies. It might cost this, or this is the most it could cost. So they tend to be soft costs. And then at the top bar there, the little white bar, those are indirect costs. That's fees and markups, insurance premiums. We don't really care about those because they're a percentage of the rest. So what we concentrate on is managing direct cost and risk cost. So on this particular project at 60% design, we set a target price of $10.6 million. Client was happy with that. Contractor was happy with that. We went ahead, we advanced the design to 90%, which is when we were going to set our GMP. When we got to 90%, now we ended up at 10.3 million. Our initial 90% design submission was a little over the 10.6. But we went back, we did a little bit of value engineering, we brought the job back down. But you can see from the increase in the green bar that from 60 to 90, our direct costs went up because our certain costs went up. But we took money out of our risk costs, we shifted it down to direct costs. And then what's left in the risk bar is the construction phase risks that are going forward. So this illustrates perfectly how this process is supposed to work. We want to start out with a target price here. We want to end up with a price here. As we eliminate risk, we can lower the cost. So we want to be doing a paper at a conference here in about 4 years that we have the same graph for our project here. I'm hoping some of the design build teams are actually listening in on this call today. If you are, please pay attention. This is what we're looking for in our design builder. And we've spent a lot of time talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we want somebody who's proactive. You can in terms of risk, we were talking about this the other day. Contractors can allow themselves to be overtaken by events, or they can be proactive and they can avoid things. We're looking for a contractor that, or a team that demonstrates that they can proactively avoid things. We don't want to get hit by the bus too many times. We want to make sure they can operate with genuine transparency. These are open book transactions, but they can easily bury us in hundreds and hundreds of pages of PDF documents that we have to wade through and try and make sense of. We need them to be able to distill all this transparent information down to the key things we need to make decisions. And not everybody does that or does it well. So we want to make sure that somebody demonstrates that they're able to do that. We're looking for a track record of thoughtful design. You know, there are lots of firms out there that can design a water treatment plant, but we want the guy that makes sure that the place there's a spot in the building where you got to clean the floor, that they've thought enough that there's a hose bib and a hose right there to do it. So we want to look for examples of that. And again, we're going to be talking to references. They're going to be giving us other project experience they had. We're thinking about the questions we want to ask those owners in terms of how thoughtful was the design, how easy is it to operate, how easy is it to maintain. We want somebody that follows the contract. Not everybody does that. We want them to take the time to do things right. This, you know, we're spending a lot of, you know, collaboration costs money. There's a lot of people involved. It's a lot of time. I like to tell clients, every time you have a workshop, you guys are paying for every person in the room. So we want to get value out of that time, but we also want to do it right. We don't want to just mail it in and you know, a schedule can be it's a piece of paper, but if it isn't thoughtful, it doesn't give us anything. We want a successful track record of build the budget. We need you to build the budget. Show us where you've done that before. If you haven't shown us you can do that, we probably don't want to pick you. Coming back to understanding change of cost, we want them to demonstrate they have an effective process for pinpointing changes in costs. They can do it very quickly. We can dig into the weeds and find things, but it takes time. We want them to present it to us so we always know exactly why the cost changed. And we want them to be willing to invest time in collaboration, see the value of themselves, and we want them to be coachable. We want them to be comfortable with being challenged, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to do due diligence. We want to make sure everything's fair and equitable. If we don't like something, we want to tell them, and we want to work it out and stay on good terms. You know, a lot of times this becomes a race to get to GMP. You know, we're going to pay them for pre-construction services. Ultimately, they're not making money on this job unless they're building it. And we want to prevent this from becoming a race to GMP where we just got to get to GMP so we can start making money. Let's slow down. Let's do this right. That's all I got. So open for questions.
Who's got a question? Director Boatright.
You had one of your slides that talked about
Thank you.
changing the scope of the project versus changing the design build team. Are we locked in to a design, you know, once we choose a design builder, are we locked into that design builder? You know, maybe we ought to look at the design and builder the same company, or are these two companies, engineering design company that, you know, works with multiple contractors or selected contractors?
Usually, typically it's a contractor, you know, because it's hard to be really good at both. To be a good designer and a good contractor is tough. So we want to see a contract, you know, we want to see a really qualified contractor who's teamed with a really qualified designer. Now, we had one prospective team came in and met with us, and they've worked together consistently on multiple projects. And that's a really good thing. There's good team chemistry. They all know how to block and tackle together, and they know how to interact. So that's really positive. At the same time, having a contractor that's worked for multiple engineers helps you develop a different set of skill set. Ultimately, we want to see a team that can communicate and work together. We want experts in construction, experts in design. We want them to be able to communicate really well. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You know, that was kind of the end part of the question. So as we are selecting a design build team and they say, well, your budget's not big enough, are we able to select another design build team that, you know, this is what we want for our community, the scope of our project and go with a different design build team? Or,
Yeah, the short answer is yes. So you guys engaged Carollo, and Carollo developed a PDR in 2019, which was a design, it's a preferred design, I think is a fair term. It's a preliminary design, but it's a process that you guys are comfortable with. I think it's consistent with the way you operate most of your facilities, the way they're designed. It's the one your operators are most comfortable. So you guys have, this is our preferred package, and that was established in the PDR. The PDR is going to be part of the solicitation. At the same time, we're open to ideas and alternatives, and that's an important part of this process. We want to get other people to come in and show us better ways to do things. We've done some investigation. We do have a water treatment specialist on our team, a gentleman by the name of Rob Schoaf, who's coming in here tomorrow for a workshop we have on Thursday. But we are looking at the PDR design. We've identified a few parts of that scope we could probably don't need, and maybe a few other things we do need. So we're massaging that scope a little bit. We're going to basically issue an RFP that says this is what we want, but we're open to alternatives. We have to be careful because we don't want to go down a rabbit hole on some whole different design and 6 months later figure out that that's too expensive and then we've lost all this time. So we have to present this very carefully in that this is the money we have to spend. This is what we want. If you show us a better alternative, it's still got to meet the budget. And we can look at life cycle cost as well. It may be more expensive to build, but cheaper to operate. So there's a lot of complexity. Most teams are going to, I think to part of your question of do we not select a certain person, I think we have to be careful. We want to make sure that the team, the design team and the construction team are both experienced in the type of plant we want to build. If somebody's primary experience is a different type of treatment process, then we might not see the benefit. We may see the benefit of somebody who's designed a lot of these, as a higher benefit. So I think we will factor in their previous experience and their previous design experience into the selection. I'm not sure it's going to be a hard and fast scoring thing, but I think it's just this guy's designed 50 of this type of plant that we want, and this guy's designed 2, and he's mostly done other plants. I think we probably go this way.
okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what goes into the request for proposal to the open community of design builders as far as what we've wanted?
Yes, we've been having multiple meetings and we have documents flying back and forth right now, but we're following SB 9891, which is the Senate bill in California that enables collaborative delivery. So we got to be very careful to comply with that. That requires a non-price based selection based on qualifications. We've broken the qualifications down into a couple of buckets. It's firm experience. Give me a second. It's their project approach. So again, back to your point of we've established this is what we want. We're asking them to tell us how you're going to approach the project, both from a design standpoint and a construction standpoint. And we want to look at their project experience. How many of these have you built before? And also individual team member experience. If the firm's built 50 of these plants and nobody on the team was involved in this project, that's not worth anything. So I think we're going to put more emphasis on the individuals that are here. And we have to make sure that the proposed people, we have to have some comfort level that the people they propose are the people we're going to get. I mean, we're cognizant of the fact this is a small community. Everybody's got A teams, but everybody's got B and C teams. So we got to make sure that, we're going to get the team they propose and they're the guys we want. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but did I circle around? We have a lot of latitude. I think more importantly, we're thinking really hard about what questions. Anybody can write a proposal to our approach. Then they're all going to be likely the same. I think we're putting more thought now into what questions do we ask their references. Because that's what's going to, you can say, tell us how you do thoughtful design. You're going to need a narrative. Here's how thoughtful our design is. Well, the proof is in the pudding. Let someone else tell us you did a thoughtful design. That's going to probably carry, I think, more weight in our ultimate scoring.
Thank you.
Sure.
Director Ng, did you raise your hand?
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Until after.
Dr. Mellon?
Oh, thank you, Director Regan. You have a follow-up question. So, like you said, anybody can write something, but So I would be interested in looking at their track record in terms of projects with the fewest change orders and they
Yes.
come in on time and in budget,
Yes,
and so that they have actually demonstrated
yes,
their ability to, anybody can lowball it and then ask for all kinds of change, like, as you well know, so
Yes.
on time and in budget, certainly something that we've run into here.
Yes, there are people that execute this process extremely well, and we've had a number of them into meeting. There are some really good teams that we expect to compete for this project. There are lots of people out there that, and everybody's stressed. Everybody's busy right now. We do a lot of work in Florida. People can't even get contractors to respond to RFPs right now. There's so much work. Which means all the A teams are taken and a lot of times you're dealing with people that just don't have the experience. We need experience, but we're also a small community. So how do we get people to not look at a job in San Francisco and come up here? So there's a right fit.
Director Reagan?
Okay, couple of thoughts I have that you folks, because you do it all the time, probably have already thought of, but I'll throw them out there anyways, just in case. Probably mostly because I've had experience up here in the area in construction and so on. I would seriously like to suggest that some sort of consideration be done to look at the condition of the roads, the access and so on to the site so that the project's not blamed for things that it didn't cause.
Yes.
As well as having material access. I don't know if there'll be anything of oversize or anything like that, but that's could be a consideration. The other thing I'd like to suggest is none of these firms are going to be from here in the area, I'm assuming, that are going to be that you folks are contacting, correct? They're all out of the area?
Some have people in the area.
there's some firms that have staff, but the firms are all headquartered out of the area.
How much work do they actually do up here, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Yeah, and generally speaking, not a lot, but
Right.
there have been some larger projects, our own wastewater project, Jamestown Sanitary District's built
Yeah, but that's down the hill and that's good access for the most part. I mean, I'm not talking about the back road getting in.
There aren't a lot of projects upslope from our office here that would be of this scale.
Director Raymond, we're very excited about the teams that we have interest in this project. There's some good people.
Okay, well, I'm sure.
But more importantly, to your question about roads, yes, this is a huge concern of ours. Chris, how many truckloads of material do we have to get in and out of here? Come on, we were working on it yesterday. Yes.
Just to get the dirt out of the reservoir, it's 2,300.
Just a couple.
Yes,
That's
and
not concrete
Pickup
coming
trucks?
in, piece steel coming in.
Right. Okay, well, I was envisioning a lot down that line, so
Yeah.
you got, and as I thought, you folks are already there, you're already thinking about it, but
we were here in March and told you guys the roads are gonna be torn up. It's just, we have to, this is a tough conversation. We have to figure out. We're looking at alternative changing, the PDR has a planned access route for construction. We're looking at maybe changing that to limit the number of roads we have to travel, and we have to look for ways, how can we limit the number of trips? We were talking the other day, can we lose some of the material, some of the excess excavation material on site and not put it out on the roads? Where right now everything's on the table, and we're probably gonna have to make some provisions for either protecting roads, assume there's gonna be some damage that has to be repaired, but ultimately we want to try to avoid having to repave all the roads when we're done. There's no money for that. There's no money in the PDR budget, so that's gonna hit us hard.
right.
So.
Okay, so then the other thing that I would like to throw out on the table to if I was gonna have to get involved in this, I would want to go to the suppliers such as the concrete and so on and make sure that they actually can produce the amount of trucks available for a certain project within the project, so that you don't get tied up by a lack of material at the last minute, especially when you're pouring concrete. And I've been promised things that have not come through, and
You a
that's why.
contractor, you sound like you've have experience as a contractor or at least in the industry. You know what the world we live in, yeah.
Well, I've been in it only 60 years, so.
Yeah. You
Anyway.
got 30 on, I guess Chris and I together might be able to equal you, so.
Well, yeah, but you guys probably got a lot more experience and bigger jobs. But all I'm getting at is that, you know, this is not like down the Bay Area where you've got big companies that can provide stuff immediately. You've got small companies that can get the job done, but sometimes because they want the job, kind of can overpromise. And that just puts the contractor in deep doo-doo when he's trying to get it done.
2 or 3 years ago, Northeast Florida ran out of gravel. And we had $300 million reclamation facility projects going on at the same time. They're all planning on scheduled to pour 600-700 yards a week, and nobody could get more than 500 yards a week for about 2 years. That was a cap. You got 500, and that's all you got. They were doling out what they had based on gravel. So we do have to take that into consideration. The design builder under his scope of work is required to pre-qualify all of his bidders, and that would include suppliers. So if he comes in and proposes he's gonna buy concrete from a local supplier that we don't think has the capacity, we need to be prepared to question that. And it may mean we pay a higher price, but again, there's a risk to that. And when you think about this, you know, this open book transaction, you're paying for general conditions is being there on site every day. There's a fixed cost to that, and it's not cheap. It can be a couple of $100,000 a month just to have all the management team and all the superintendents and the trucks and the vehicles on site. So it may be cheaper if we can compress the schedule by getting concrete down the hill and paying more money for it, and it can save us time because we get more of a factor. We have to think about that because there's a price to not being delayed, and the price is coming back on you for the most part as the owner.
Well, many times, well, I won't say many times, but there's been occasions in the past, how's that? That one supplier will say, oh yeah, we can take care of that. But what they're doing is then they call, hey, Joe, can I have a couple of your trucks fill in? You know, so you gotta make sure, you know, that who's on the hook and what's gonna happen if they don't come through, because
we need contingency plans. Yes.
right.
We have to have alternate sources, and that's pretty common, I think, in construction planning. We want them to think about it. TUD's working here in town right now on the wastewater treatment facility. We haven't had any discussion of whether they've been having any supply chain disruption. Has been a big deal since COVID. So everybody's thinking about it more. Nobody ever thought you might not have concrete, but we are thinking about it now. But Eric, you guys haven't had.
Yeah, I think there were times when the batch plant was kind of at capacity and they had to schedule around other projects. It hadn't been to my knowledge, a really big impact, but your point's well taken for sure. And I think he would even put a staff person at the batch plant, A&L, just to make sure the quality was there too, because we didn't want to assume that what was coming out on another job was necessarily going to be of the same quality that was per the specification on our job.
Good.
Yeah. Again, we establish a GMP, that risk is actually transferred to the contractor, but we have to be prepared because he may want contingency for that. It's not uncommon now for there to be items in the risk register for supply chain disruptions, and it's either extra time, I'm delayed because I can't get something and it's not my fault, or you can also use that money to mitigate by going and buying something at a higher price from somebody who does have it. So it all factors into the risk. Chris, I was going to ask you how many yards of concrete?
3,197, but you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. Concrete is the perishable, right? I mean, you only got 90 minutes, right? From when it's batched to get it out of the truck. 90 minutes, 300 turns, okay? And it's gotta be out of the truck. So you're kind of bound by that part of ready mix to get it locally.
I got pricing from George Reed. They seem capable. I see all smiles up there. They have a quarry also in Jamestown, which is kind of right, you know, between here and there. So I got pricing for aggregate and some other things. The bigger things like the rebar, I got that pricing out of like closer to Sacramento. So, because that's, you know, it's a load of steel, nothing happened to it basically. So you want to try to provide local work for local businesses, but you don't want to, you know, take it on the nose either. But concrete, I just want to let you know, concrete's a little different because it has to be close to where you're placed.
Well, and that's my concern too, and that's why I brought this up, because I'll just give you one quick example. I don't want to elongate this thing, but I did a pour and it was very, very important. It was a concrete slab. And I asked the supplier, I'm not going to name names, you know, can you get this amount of concrete to this location? You know, one truck right after the other, so we didn't have any problem with the pour. Oh yeah, no problem at all. I said, are you sure? Well, yeah, if we can't quite make it, we can get a truck from this other company. I said, nope, that's not gonna work. And anyway, we went forward with the project and I thought that it was gonna be just that one. And as it turned out, they did get the truck from the other supplier that I told him not to. And he turns around in a spot that was ridiculous, gets his truck stuck. And my slab, you know, I'm stuck. I don't have the concrete to finish it. It was a mess. So I'm just telling you, this is the sort of stuff that happens up here in the Okieville, and you gotta make sure that you're ahead of it.
Really important on water for wastewater treatment plant too, because they're watertight tanks and you can't have an unplanned cold joint. Because you have a leak.
You're right.
So those are all valid concerns. And what you do is when you have a significant pour, like a slab is probably your biggest pour, right? Because it's so thick. So you meet with them, it's just like you did, you meet with them and say, what's the spacing on the trucks? How many trucks you got? You want to start the pour early, we'll start it early to help your load, you know, through the plant. We'll start it later, we'll work with you, but we gotta have continuous concrete on this pour, or we got a problem.
Right.
And that's part of the QC plan, a management plan and a QC plan that will be adopted and put in place by the design builder.
Okay, well, I can tell you guys are on it. I'm just from experience, I just thought I'd throw out a couple little things that I could see coming, so.
I'm so excited about starting for concrete.
Chris's dad was a construction superintendent. You were in the laborers union in high school.
So big college, that's my favorite.
Chris, this is why he's a good construction manager, because he's actually formed walls and placed concrete, which most of us haven't. So he lives this stuff. No, these are all very valid points. You know, the big regional ready mix guys, they move trucks around. If they've got a lot of concrete to pour in a certain area, they'll bring trucks from other plants and they can gang up and scale up. The problem is if it's a local independent, it could be a challenge. And think about this from a risk standpoint. If somebody decides to build another casino up here a year from now, they could hog all the concrete. And so those are things we have to think about. Again, it's awareness, seeing what's always looking around 360 degrees, what's going on around you and how's it going to affect us. And we're going to do this every day.
Yeah.
And we have got a lot of eyes.
That's one of the problems I got right now. Is that it, Director Brink?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Director Balin had a question for you.
And I realized we're a bunch of problem solvers up here. So, you know, we like to, you know, jump into
This is good. We love being challenged.
lots of experience here. So, but I found from the timber sale perspective, this is not concrete, that because of the supply line and that cost of you're constantly, it's like moving goalposts, you're constantly calculating it, okay? But I have found the only time sometimes to get people's attention on how important the supply line is to build in some penalties. Have you ever done that? Have you had experience with that?
I don't think it's strictly in a negotiated environment. I'm trying to think of.
You won't get a supplier. I mean, especially a commodity type of thing, they'll never accept that. And then with the equipment, you may, but that would even be tough, you can't even sometimes get them to accept, that liquidated damages, and other damages that they can cause, consequential damages. So it's hard. I mean, typically the GC or the main contractor does have a liquidated damage clause for the cost that you as a utility will incur if the project is extended. It would be difficult for you. I don't think
In the current,
especially in today's environment.
Yeah. In today's market conditions, with everybody being for the most part busy, and there are places that isn't, but just in general, our focus is more on incentivizing people to want to participate than disincentive. You tend to, if you put out a penalty out there, the people say, well, I can work over here and I don't have to deal with that risk. So we have to be very careful. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've done much in the collaborative environment along those lines because you end up losing competitors. And part of this transaction, ultimately, we're negotiating with the design builder. But one of the ways we transfer risk away from ourselves and from the design builder is we want to have them solicit competitive bids for certain scopes of work like painting and all the different trades. And we can solicit those and subcontract those on a lump sum basis, and we can transfer all the risk that goes with them. So if we were to solicit bids from a concrete sub, assuming that the prime's not going to want to self-perform that work, all the risk of supply chain disruption can be transferred to him under a lump sum price. And we try to do that as much as we can, because then those are risks. We don't want TUD carrying, we want TUD ultimately carrying as little risk into construction as possible, trying to limit your exposure so you can only get hit from so many places for cost growth.
Okay, and again, I'm getting in the weeds, but where I have found that projects come out ahead is that, like you were saying, that thinking all that through. And my examples in my world are, we're gonna, when we're done, you are going to scrape the topsoil over here and stockpile it and tarp it because we want to use it when we are at the other end of the project for landscaping.
Yes.
And not suddenly have a bunch of rock and aggregate and asphalt chunks mixed in when, which to the neighborhood's horror, then that's what is the medium. We're going to try to put a few, drought tolerant plants in. So just that kind of thinking. Another example is a penalty where the elders, the Miwok elders, wanted those black oaks to come through this project unskinned. And so you better believe the loggers were dragging air mattresses and tires and padding those things. So that's what I'm talking about is making it serious that at the end, this is going to look good. So I think my orientation is more natural resources and thinking it through, especially the topsoil, that kind of thing. So again, I'm getting into weeds, but it pays off when you want to remediate the ground and saves a lot of costs.
If the consequences are significant, there's no problem at all with putting penalties in. We like to, one of the nice things, if you're a hard bidder, you bid, design, bid, build all day long. All you have to do on bid day is be low. You don't have to be the best. The interesting aspect of this, the bigger incentive for the contractor to perform well is this is a qualification-based selection. The last thing a design builder wants to come in here is screw up a bunch of trees that someone puts a high value on during construction because he needs your reference to get the next job because it's qualification-based selection. So we rely very heavily on that. We wish the market was a little less busy so that these guys needed to work more than they do, but that can work to our advantage. But again, if there's something specific that's really important and consequential to a stakeholder in this project, we can tailor something to that.
Any other questions? Director Bogart?
The preliminary site inspections design CEQA, does that how will that play back into construction of the project? As far as limiting, that we talked about, there's a large amount of soil that's going to have to be moved. Where does that?
I don't know that I understand the question. I'm gonna
well,
let Eric handle this one, because.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll try. The board adopted in 2019, we started in 2019. I think it was adopted in 2021, the CEQA document. And then we also have all the permitting that went in. So all of those have conditions, mitigation monitoring and reporting program associated with them. So that will be kind of the guardrails for the design. It absolutely will be fed right into the design build team that we select on day one, so that when we start to thoughtfully design, we know we aren't violating any of the sort of terms and conditions of the CEQA. And some of those involve obviously the wetlands. So we can't just start building roads over wetlands because our Army Corps permit won't allow it. We can't necessarily grade the raw water pond totally different. I mean, there could be variations, but you know, the volume that Chris was citing is because we intentionally tried to make that raw water pond a almost 100% excavated pond. So there would be a low profile, less visual impact to the residents around the lake. So those are some big dollar items that we don't honestly know of the cost of those decisions until Chris and then the design build team actually place a value to each of those. But yeah, the permits and the CEQA and the NEPA for that matter, all are going to be relied upon during design.
Yes, and just to tag on to that a little bit, before we even select the design builder, they'll have access and part of the RFP, there'll be many hundreds of pages of attachments to that RFP of the CEQA documents that we already have, the permits that we already have. Take advantage of the fact that we've been so proactive and that we're so far in the process here. That way, during the selection process, we can talk to the design builders about them and if the CEQA and the permitting and the importance of the importance of the visual impacts, it's all part of not only the design process, but even before the design process starts, during the selection process, what contractor can handle those best. So those will be there too.
Okay, so just one other question then. All of our preliminary studies, work, design, permits, is that all wrapped into the, what was it, 46.3, final project cost, or is that
45,
over and
6.
above?
So yeah, the 45.6, the cost that our district already incurred to conduct all of the environmental and secure all the permits, we're not trying to reimburse ourselves for that cost out of the 45.6. But the implementation of all the protection measures that are outlined in those is going to be some of it will be transferred to the design builder as their responsibility, and the district will pay for that. So orange construction fencing through the site, managing how pedestrians get through there, relocating western pond turtle, conducting bird surveys, all of those things will come out of that 45.6.
You said it's singular, it's only one pond turtle over there?
I hope so. There hasn't been any yet, but the day that we are ready to start construction, there will be some.
We have gopher tortoises in Florida are protected. It costs about $4,500 to move one of those little suckers, and they're everywhere. Wow. We're used to protected species. I think, did we get everything?
Director Jacobs.
Who's next?
First of all, thank you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
One of the things that really stood out to me in one of your slides, you said it's all about people and it's all about relationships. And I just want to commend General Manager Perkins and his staff. You made a comment that I thought was very complimentary, that this is the most engaged group that you've ever dealt with, which is
Everybody's in the room. This is all hands on deck. We have owners that just want us to do all the blocking and tackling for them, and they're very disengaged. Every time we have a meeting, you have everybody, your operators in the room. We're gonna have the operators involved in verifying references. We're gonna let operators talk to the operators at these plants. I mean, the level of engagement here is spectacular, and we love it. And it's actually it's surprising, but it's unusual for an owner to have us on board this early to help. All the steering is right at the beginning. We bake the cake, now.
Right.
And a lot of, probably most of the work Chris and I do as consultants, we're the fire department, somebody's hired a contractor, they got a horrible GMP and it's really high and they don't know what to do. And we have to go in there and forensically be owner advisor. And this is the way it should be done. And I want this to be a model for other communities in California on how to do this right when we're done.
Great.
We're here for reasons other than monetary. This is a great opportunity. We love it. We love being here. And we want this to be successful.
Yeah,
It matters to us. I'm gonna be really unhappy if we don't get a good result here. And we got everything. We're gonna put everything we got into this. And I think your people are gonna do the same thing. By the way, I wanted to point out that Eric, the other day, we were trying to decide how much of that, we got 150,000 yards of fill to get rid of. And Eric did an acre feet calculation in his head in about 30 seconds and figured out that we could fit 16,000 yards on the site we have. That's how engaged your people are and how aware they are of what's going on around them. So that's impressive.
It's very preliminary and it doesn't have to be right.
It was enough that we were like, well, that is not going to get rid of 150,000 yards of spoils. And immediately we're like, well, can we build tanks instead of moving all that earth? And it's probably the same. So everything is a trade-off. We want this, but it's going to, everything we, and it's the fun, it's the challenge, it's the engagement. This thing is a very complex transaction, and that's what it is. And we don't know what it's going to look like at the end, but we have a lot of opportunity to control what it looks like. But we have to think about every other alternative, and then again, back to cost. If we don't know if this is where it goes off the rails. If you're presented with an alternative, we can do this or this, and you don't know exactly what the cost change is, you're never going to, half the time you're not going to make the right decision. And that's why we want to pick the guy that can do actual cost reconciliation. Tell us to the penny. If you don't like the price of the bollards around the building, we can get rid of some of them, or we can do something else. So we want to negotiate costs on a very granular level. Ultimately, it's total cost. The GMP is it's one big bucket of money. It's once we set the GMP, the contractor controls all the money within that bucket. He can spend it on anything he wants, provided qualifies as a cost of the work under the terms of the contract. But to get to that GMP, we got to be in the weeds and we have to negotiate everything on a granular level. We don't want to pay $200 for something that costs $100 times 10,000 line items in these estimates. So it can be very difficult to sift through all this information. And that's why we want a contractor that wants to be part of that process and wants to do it with us.
So I just want to, on behalf of the board, commend the staff for your engagement, and it's an exciting project for all of us, everybody in the room, and we just appreciate having you guys on board.
Well, thank you.
I just got to say thank you for recognizing that. When I first met Fred and Marsha Wagner and others, and everybody I've we've brought in to interview or talk about, I talk about relationships, and it's really easy to throw around, having good relationships, but we mean it. I'm telling you, we mean it. I let them know that you have very intelligent people here. Between Trevor and I, just two of us, there's 44 years, almost 50 years worth of treatment experience. So you got some really engaged people here. You can now see, even at the board level, how engaged and how wise they are. So again, thank you for recognizing it, and thank you for displaying your you wanted to work with that and be engaged with that. So one of the things I liked about this team here is they're from Florida. They're coming all the way out here to California to come work. And that was one of the things I told the internal teams. I want people that want to be here for a few years, who wants to understand what it's like to live. And for those folks who've been in Twayne for 40 years. And so when you leave here, you're leaving that place in the same way as best you can as when you got here. Only now we have a beautiful facility. And this team has taken that to heart, and you're recognizing. So thank you. You're welcome.
My most satisfying projects have been small community projects. They need your help. They value what you're doing. You can deliver value.
Forgot about you.
I mean, we're here because we want to be here.
Yeah. Director Ringen's got another comment or question.
Yeah, well, gonna go to the ridiculous here, but I just have to do it. Maybe, Mr. GM, we need to go back to thinking about that piece of property right across from Sierra Pines, that big deep gully. And instead of hauling all that dirt out of there, put the dam in like we were gonna do and have a reservoir over there.
Maybe.
See Eric all shaking his head.
I think we lost that. I think somebody else gobbled that up, but yeah, we'll think about it.
I suggested we fill in we build a big berm under the elevated trestle and we can take the trestle out and just have that thing.
There you go.
Earthen canal all the way across the valley. That didn't fly either.
No.
Director Jacobs, you had something else there?
Yes,
Oh, I had a question for Director Bailey. Do you know where we can actually find some topsoil around here? Because we were walking around the site yesterday, we didn't find anything that we thought qualified as topsoil, that we're from Florida, so what do we know?
Well, meaning, your surface soil that
Yeah.
has your organics in it.
No, I'm sorry, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of organics around here, so.
Yeah, and people love that trestle up there.
That's part of the thrill of being here. This is the coolest water delivery system we've ever seen. It is just fascinating. The whole history of it is, it's just remarkable, so.
Director Boatright.
Okay, so we've done our preliminary, done our building and all that. Part of our effort moving into this and into the future needs to look at time and energy and commodity savings for the operation of this plant as well. So got just that forward, because
Yeah, life
once
cycle.
it's turned over to Trevor and his crew, it's gonna be a lifetime of operation through from there, so.
A lot of those workshops with the design build team focus on evaluating life cycle costs and looking at, what our budget can afford up front, but not burdening operations with a brand new facility that takes 3 times as much labor and inputs to run. That's not going to be considered a successful outcome. So that's one of the beauties of collaborative delivery is we're going to have that interaction with the experts, with our technical advisors, with the builder. I think our chances of having the best outcome are through that process.
Rob Schoaf, who's our technical advisor on our team, was involved in the Redlands project here in California. It's been a while, but he swears it's the same Corolla PDR as the one he used to build Redlands. So we've got some people that are very well versed in this particular type of plant design. Also, Director Boatright, I wanted to point out, we do have a life cycle cost component to the design builder services. So when he gives us a cost estimate, we're also going to be doing a life cycle cost estimate as well to help us make decisions. And as Eric said, it's power and it's chemicals. And we've talked about when we go to the selection process, when we have our proposals and we're talking references, is trying to verify that if there was life cycle cost estimates provided on those plants, are they actually achieving those goals? Are they running, spending? It's not uncommon to have somebody design a plant and build it and it costs twice as much electricity as everybody thought, and then you're stuck with it forever. So we want to drill down into those with some of these other facilities that have been built to make sure that they're given, their projections are accurate. It's not difficult. It's electrical, like I said, it's electrical loads and chemical feed rates, so it should be easy. But we will take that into consideration. It could be tough if we have budget problems because then TUD's got to decide, I can get under budget, but am I going to sacrifice longer? Again, you have this much funding from DDW. Do we have to prioritize that over future costs? And that's going to be a tough decision you guys are going to have to grapple with throughout this.
All right, as long as it's being looked at. Thank you for the presentation today.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Heather, do you have anything to say? Very quiet. That's the boss.
Director Jacobs, you raised your hand.
yeah, just to tag onto the GMP versus life cycle. I mean, the focus has been on the GMP, and I appreciate Director Boatright's concern about the life cycle. So how do other districts manage that tension? Because, as representing all the ratepayers, we want to ensure that for the long term, they see the fewest rate increases, and we see the best, most efficient operating cost. But obviously that conflicts with the guaranteed maximum price. You don't want to spend, you can't overspend to achieve that. So could if we found a juncture where there was a significant cost increase to reduce the overall life cycle cost, would that be made up with CIP funding, or how do we manage that? Just curious.
That's a great question. I'd like to know the answer to that,
Well,
Don.
I'm gonna say something. You said something very early on that made me look at Eric and go, huh? I missed that some. One example that he threw out there, and this is written in pencil so far as I'm concerned. He said we value engineered a tank from stressed concrete. I think you used.
Is it going yet, Don? It isn't going yet.
I know, I said it's in
But, yeah.
pencil, but so we suddenly value engineered, went from a stressed concrete tank down to a bolted tank to save some money up front to fit the budget, all the money we have. What that means is 35 to 40 years from now, we're gonna have to replace that tank, right? So that's all that meant, but we have. Now, you can answer the rest of this question.
Well, we actually talked about this discussion in one of our meetings last week. So Chris, what's the delta? So $2.5 million difference between bolted steel tanks and pre-stressed.
Wow.
So now we take that $2.5 million, and again, now we have to look at, we're looking at a 40-year life cycle for the facility. If we anticipate that we have to replace that tank in 20 years, the steel tank, because it's not going to last as long, then we have to forecast what that cost is going to be. But then you net present value that back to today, it's going to be a very small number. So I think it's going to always, again, net present value in the future capital expenditures is probably always going to lean back towards the current money, but it's $2.5 million, Don. So,
We have some discussions.
Yes.
and I think it's the size, everybody does pre-stressed tanks in Florida, but they're dirt cheap down there, and I think it's the size.
Size, size, even though we're not in size of area, there is a size concern.
Right.
So it's a completely different tank than we deal with in Florida. The whole advantage of a pre-stressed tank is your concrete sections are smaller, right? Because you've got the cable doing the work. Here, because you have to have reinforcing from the slab up into the walls, meet those seismic concerns, you don't get your sections are greater. So you're using more steel, more concrete. So they're not the home run like we're used to seeing in Florida and in other non-seismic areas.
I didn't mean to catch you with surprise that we were going with bolted steel tanks. So.
I'm just having fun.
That does bring up another question as to cost of pre-stressed concrete tank versus, say, 3 bolted steel tanks.
Two.
How does that?
You can do it a bunch of different ways, but, okay, so we decided from an operational standpoint, you want 2 500,000-gallon tanks, because if you ever have to take one down to clean or service, whatever, you got your other tank there. You put one tank, it's obviously cheaper, you get economy of scale, cheaper to build a bigger tank, then you got problems potentially. And that's not set in stone yet. I mean, when we work through this Thursday and we continue to work through the progress of the project, we may determine that we're all right with 1 million gallon tank because we shut down for 7 days anyway, we're good. But anyway, so we look at those types of things and we look at the different costs for each of them and make hopefully good decisions.
Trevor gets to help us decide this too.
Yeah.
Look at, you're looking very angry now about bolted steel.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
I'm sorry, I don't think I answered your question.
Yeah, that wasn't quite the question, because, having multiple, redundancy in the project, that's one thing. But say like a pre-stressed concrete tank is projected to last 60 years, bolted steel tank, 20 years. So in the same time span, you would need 3 bolted tanks versus 1 pre-stressed concrete tank. One other factor in that would be if you have to replace that pre-stressed concrete, you got a demolition cost to, that skyrockets over the other.
Yeah.
So that's all scoped in. How long is the project projected to be with the community.
I don't, that's the designer, you guys, typically a life cycle plan is typically based on 50 years. I mean, that's.
When you guys are, and the further you get, the harder it is to do life cycle costing the further you go in the future, because look at all the uncertainty we've had with inflation and escalation in just the last 4 years. We don't know what's gonna happen in 4 years, so it's all a guess.
Well,
Or it's a range of probabilities. We have to think about all the, well, every job you have to think about these things, but we're gonna think about it more on this job because we have to. You guys don't just go raise rates if you need more money to build this job. We gotta find a solution to every budget problem we have.
And that's the potential flaw with value engineering too. You know, first of all, a lot of people think value engineering is, well, just eliminate pain. That's not value engineering, that's scope reduction. Okay, you have this kind of, yeah, well, get rid of this, get rid of spare parts. So, but when you get into value engineering, don't be fooled by the dollars and make a bad mistake. We're in Florida and we did primarily water and wastewater, but we also did a lot of work for Disney. Okay. Terrible. Never made any money. Anyway, when the Animal Kingdom was built, someone made a decision to, all their ponds are connected with large piping underneath, they're all interconnected. And the parking lots are over top of it. And someone made a value engineering decision to put corrugated metal pipe.
Oh, boy.
And it started down, and it was 84-inch or 72-inch, I can't remember. And that was a bad decision. So don't be chased or fooled by the money. I mean, it's gotta be a good thing.
Director Bailey, I would like to thank you for your, again, this is a collaboration. So what I learned today is you were talking about penalties, incentives, and Director Jacobs mentioned actual life cycle costs, and we're talking about performance guarantees. And one of the things we're not considering in performance guarantees is whether we want to include life cycle costing and energy costs in part of the performance guarantee. So that's what I learned from you today, and that's how collaboration works. And now we have another idea to talk about in terms of what we can put in the contract is have them guarantee performance. So if the electrical bill is twice as high, you have an offset for that.
All right. Well, one more thing.
Yes. So in terms of relationship, people, and it's all about relationships. I know we've learned a little bit about your firm based on the RFP, the approval process, and we've learned that you have a relationship with Chris and his dad that's longstanding. So it would be helpful as we're entering into this long-term relationship that we understand a little bit more about the dynamics between the three of you. And Rob Schoaf was another name that you mentioned. Maybe you could just kind of give us a thumbnail of your history, how you work together, just in a brief.
Sure. So brief summary, and you have ridiculously long resumes for both of us, but I met Chris actually, well, Chris worked for a contractor in Baltimore. We're both born and raised in Baltimore. We both went to college in Virginia. We actually knew people that knew each other. But Chris and I met up in 1992. He came to work for Poole & Kent, which was a big contractor in Baltimore, big union contractor. And we built, at the time, that was the largest project that Poole & Kent had ever done. It was an upgrade of the Patapsco wastewater treatment plant for the city of Baltimore. So it was my first wastewater treatment plant. So we worked together at Poole & Kent for a while. I went to Alaska and started building hospitals. Chris stayed in Poole & Kent, eventually matriculated down and ended up with Wharton Smith down in Florida. I went to Virginia and worked for another contractor. So we had these parallel careers. We've been friends for our entire lives. So I worked for a contractor in Virginia for a period of time, was basically a division manager and did that for a long time. And at the same time, Chris was down there working for Wharton. So I was the vice president for MEB General Contractors in Virginia Beach. Chris was vice president for Wharton Smith in Tampa. But we were always in contact and visiting each other. Chris retired from Wharton Smith in 2012, actually came up and worked for MEB, joined me at MEB because he actually had a lake house up in Virginia. So he was living 20 minutes from one of our projects, so ended up coming back, got bored, built all new decks around his house and then got bored. And so he came back and started helping me, and then we've been sort of working together ever since. I left MEB, went to a company in Florida called Haskell, which is one of the premier design builders in the country. Didn't stay there very long, so read into that what you want. But and then Chris actually followed me down there and started consulting with them, started helping them finish projects that they were struggling with. And then I met Heather Marsh in 2014, left Haskell in 2017. But no, yes, so I knew Heather, who's my wife, by the way, now. So left Haskell, went to work for her in 2017, spent the first, she's a geologist, does a lot of large diameter tunnel work. So I spent the first 2 years of my career working for her underground in Atlanta on a giant raw water tunnel, riding a TBM every night. I was also did some work for JA, who's a big utility in Northeast Florida. Before I went to work for Heather in 2019, somebody from JA, they went all in their entire capital program at $1.5 billion on collaborative delivery without ever done one before. And I got asked to come in from somebody I knew to come in and explain to them how this all worked. Basically, the presentation we just did with you today. And they came back and decided they needed an advisor. So we weren't advisors, but they hired us to be their advisor. So we've been advising them on their capital program since early 2020. And that's been, which was entirely new. We didn't decide to be advisors, but Chris was retired back down in Florida. So I needed help. So I called him first, and we got another guy, Johnny Overton, who used to work for Jacobs, and another older guy with a lot of experience. And so we've been working on this together, and that's it. And that's all right. So the other part of your question, yes, you explained, Rob.
So, oh, I was just wondering if we could hear from you, Heather.
Yes.
Thank you.
Come on up, come up for the mic, guys.
We're starting this term. I worked at BLZ in Columbus, Ohio, and up until 93, 94 until 2006, early 2006, I went to URS. URS got bought by AECOM right after I left and started. So 2006, though, I was at URS with Rob Ship. So Rob and I he was the water director for the company, for the region, and then also became global or national. And I was the regional director for tunnels and then co-national director. But our office is right next door to each other. We were in the same group. We were both water, wastewater, and we just had a good time together. We didn't work on jobs together really, but we knew each other very, very well just from the action. He's a very hard worker. We had very similar, yes, personalities and the way we work, and work hard, play hard, be good. We both like to seek out smaller communities as well. So when this RFP came up, he actually left AECOM and started his own business as well. So that's how he became part of this job with us. When the RFP came out, I saw there was a water.
There was a technical component to the OA services, which we tried to get Gadiel to delete.
Yes.
Before we issued the RFP, he didn't, so we're like, oh, we need a technical guy. Heather's like, I know a guy.
He's a national expert. A lot of people know him. He worked at URS/AECOM. He did work in California, and he traveled to Cuba. I knew he was doing a lot of work all over the place. I mean, so it's a lot about water. Hopefully, he says the same thing about me. That's for but anyway, I was like, this is a perfect guy. He's a perfect guy for this. He's got a company now, so this is not bringing in a big one. He's got like-minded. He puts a lot of smaller communities around. Very cost conscious. He wants to do the right thing, but he wants to make sure it's the right thing for you all, not what he thinks. So good guy. And hopefully, we'll get a chance to meet him here soon.
It'll be in town Thursday. So Carlos Jaramillo, who is runs our San Francisco office, is also an associate of Heather's from URS. So
my co-national practice manager, he was part. So I was East Coast, he was West Coast.
we're a very small company. There's only 10 of us. But what's unique about us is we all know each other. We're all have personal relationships. So this isn't just a business transaction. We work together because we're friends. We also we have some younger people in the field supporting us, but for the most part, Carlos, Chris, myself, and Heather, we're able to work on projects that are of interest to us that we want. You know, this isn't a corporate thing where somebody says we are going to go do that project because it's huge or whatever. We kind of get to pick and choose what we want to do. Carlos sits out Tim soon and he picks and chooses what he wants to work on because it's interesting to him. Chris and I pick things that are interesting to us. We're in it to make money, but that's not everything for us. And Heather's the same in terms of the work that she pursues on the geotechnical side. So it's an odd little group, but we're very, very, everything we do is very specialized.
That's the biggest thing that I would say. Our entire staff. But it is work ethic and it's a lot of very important. To me, it's very important. I'm hoping we could see that through the mayor that's active and passionate. Yeah.
Well, thank you, guys.
Fathers both raised us the same way. You do it right or you don't do it at all. I think we have the same.
Okay, so
built into us.
my dad had some company, it was asphalt ceiling. But the name of the company was too, right?
That's good close.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. Yeah, that's been a fantastic presentation. We appreciate it. And it's nice to know you're a good, small, family-oriented, quality and also quality-oriented company. And we look forward to working with you. I'm looking forward to the new way of doing business here on this project. I think it's going to be a good thing for TUD, and I'm excited to see how it comes out. And I want to thank the board too for their questions. We had a lot of good questions. A lot of the questions that were rolling around in my head, you guys already asked, so I didn't have to get involved, and that was fine with me. So with that, we'll close this part of the meeting. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if I may just add one
Sure, Eric.
thing for the board's benefit. So we're going to be working on the contract, working on the RFP we spoke about. The goal is once the funding's secured, then we will issue that RFP. And then we will solicit those proposals and go through what will be a grading and an interview process. And then eventually your board will be faced with the decision of hiring a design builder. Toward the end of the year is kind of where we're sitting. I just wanted to make sure we didn't leave the presentation without giving you guys a glimpse on the horizon of what we're working on and what decisions you'll be faced with here, hopefully soon.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Gaddiel. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Next item.
Staff reports?
Anybody got a staff report? Who wants to start?
Only have one thing, and that was, was it just last week we had the ribbon cutting ceremony? Is that last week? Man, seems like,
2 weeks ago.
anyway, a couple weeks, whenever it was a good time. I really appreciated the, Emily and Abby and everybody that put it on. We had a great turnout and I just really enjoyed it. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? Eric? Eric Johnson? Carolyn? Abby?
Morning, everyone. Yes, thank you all very much for your participation. That was a great event on the 26th, and I'm already seeing 4 years down the road this up at Sierra Pine, so we'll make that a party too. So thank you for that. Couple of updates. Just wanted to let the board know that the CIP and the budget documents have been uploaded to the website. So if you're curious about looking at each of those project summaries, Eric's team did a good job putting that together, and then we got that up there. And I also wanted to let you know we added fuels reduction projects to the active project list. So all of our grant funded fuels reduction projects are up there for everyone to see. We have one grant application still out there through CAL FIRE. It's actually the third that we've applied for. We applied for the first 2 rounds and we're awarded that. We just finished the Twin Heart wastewater treatment plant fuels reduction project, but we do have another 8 to 10 or so project sites in the application. And I attended the Natural Resources Committee meeting last week on the 3rd, and Gary Whitson from CAL FIRE just announced that they're a little bit delayed on their project, announcing their grants, but we should know by early September if we'll be awarded on this 3rd project. So, and that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Move on to Director's Communications. Start with Director Jacobs.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Director Ballin?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Abby for, you guys did a stellar job, for the dedication and the ribbon cutting. So thank you very much. Did anybody see any of our supervisors there by any chance?
Nope.
Okay, just wondering. They didn't see, okay, just checking for the record. And I also want to call the whole board's attention to, there is a youth, California Department of Natural Resources, of course, is now putting out some of their requests for funding. And this is the youth access to cultural and natural resources. It's become apparent that, drug addiction, et cetera, is related to children's inability to get out and be with nature, and especially dispersed recreation. It has a direct bearing on the health of our community and our youth. These are future customers of TUD. There's 18.5 million in this grant, and it's specifically for public education for youth to access natural and cultural resources. So they're holding awareness sessions. I don't know what they're called. And Emily has attended those in the past, but again, it's always wonderful to use other people's money to advance what might in the future, this is all what we were talking about, educate future customers on the value of water and where it comes from and how important our system is. So I just can't stress it enough. And so that I'll send that information to you. But again, that's 18.5 million, Prop 64. This is coastal community money. This is money from the South. And if we can plow it into our system instead of just waiting for a rate increase, and I don't say that derogatorily, but I'm just beseeching TUD to begin investing now for things that could pay off in the future in this respect. End of point. So I'll thank you on that.
Okay, Director Boatright.
Let's see. One thing from last meeting, we briefly talked about wanting to see a director's compensation agenda item. Just wanted to kind of keep bringing that up.
You'll see it come up. It's coming up.
Go through and address that. And then I was also approached by two different individuals in the community wanting to know how to access the districts for the upcoming election in November for board member seats. Is that?
You mean?
I know it should be on our website. Is it spelled out how to gain access to it?
Are you asking about if somebody is interested in running for a seat?
Correct.
Okay. County clerk. Mm-hmm. And
Okay, so
the elections office.
Access through the county clerks to.
Correct,
see
Abby?
actual.
Yes, all of that on running for the board would be through the county clerk.
Yeah.
If they want to look at the maps,
Yeah,
the divisions, those are on our website on the board of directors page on the TUD website. It takes you actually, once you click on it, it does take you to a county map because they developed the district boundaries per your direction. But yeah, all of that is directly from the website. If you'd like, I could send a link to you.
Okay. Would it also be helpful is which districts are up for re-election at this time? As far as I know, Director Kearns and Director Ringen are seated in districts that won't be up for election until 26. So
It's districts 2, 3, and 5.
2, 3, and 5. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and if you go on the website and the TUD website, click on the board of directors page where all our pictures are, it shows our current terms on there as well. And when our terms are up. So that's a good place to check out too. Pardon me?
In which district?
Correct, it does, yeah, yeah. But as far as, filing and dates and all that stuff, that's all, that, I mean, it's all county stuff, yeah, yeah. All right, good question though, David.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Director Ringen.
Okay, I don't have anything really to report, but I did want to mention one thing. Just want to say kudos to staff and the organization. Anybody that's driven up Mono Way in East Sonora, going out through East Sonora, you won't even notice it now, but guess what? There's no longer a unsightly, hard to keep up lift station that you couldn't even park next to in order to get repair work or anything. I mean, the whole thing. It was one more of those ugly, nasty things that TUD acquired, didn't want, but acquired when we were formed in 1992. And it's now gone. You can't even tell. So I can't tell you what to look for because there's nothing to look for. It looks great.
Mission accomplished.
That's it. So that's all for me.
Thanks, Ron. What was that?
One less electric bill.
That's
That's
right.
right.
That's right.
And it's all gravity fed,
Yeah.
underground.
The only thing I have is, I just wanted to comment on the ribbon cutting as well. I thought that was, done very well, Abby, you and Emily, and, appreciate all your work and hard work on that. And I want to thank all our partners who showed up. I too was interested that, there was no supervisors there. I thought maybe we'd get one, but we didn't, and that's okay. But, I thought it went off very well, and, you guys should be commended for that.
Yep.
And we've got something there that we're very proud of, and we should be. And it's going to serve the community well into the future, long after we're all gone probably. So anyway, with that, we will close the meeting. We'll see you in a couple